Webinar. Hello and welcome to our Friday webinar. We are back on with Pamela Clark. Thank you. Welcome back. We were just on with you last Friday.
You were. I know. It was fun.
We got a double back to back here. This is a very exciting topic because we're going to cover green cheek conures, which I think is way overdue. That is I'm sure you'll dive into this, but a very popular conure for many reasons, right?
Yes.
And I know that we have a lot of interest in this topic, and so we probably also have some questions that are going to arise from people who want to have get the lowdown on green cheek. So if you do have a question, we'll save that for maybe towards the end. So use the Q&A button and not the chat feature. And Pamela, do you have do I need to make you a co-host? I forgot to do that earlier. Are we sharing any PowerPoint or anything? Or are we gonna?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I am going to share a PowerPoint.
All right, I will do that now. And sorry, I meant to do that earlier. Okay, so we'll let everyone kind of log on here. I see our numbers just going up here. So a lot of people want to know about conures. And I do too, because they're just, they're a very popular parrot. Okay, I'll give a couple minutes here.
Maddie.
You see some familiar names there?
I know Madeline Dugan. Yes.
All right, welcome.
We're good friends.
Okay. Oh, I was just curious. So people who have logged on so far, and let's see, if you could raise your hand, I want to see how many people have had a green cheek conure in their life, or currently have a green cheek, or just want to know more. Let's see, if you have green cheek experience, raise your hand. Let's see if that feature works. There's a little hand button, so do the raise hand button. Okay, we got 31 people. Oh yeah, raise their hand. So okay, there we go. A lot of green cheek people. Okay, nice. I think we have more. I can't tell because the hand raising went up to shot up to 31, and then there's more.
I know. Why is it going down?
I was like, I don't know. Are they lowering your hand down, or more people raising their hand? All right. I am not sure how that feature works, but I tried it. All right. All right, Pamela, I'm gonna let you take this away.
Okay, very good. Let me get this rolling here.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm curious to know about that raised hand thing. Yeah.
This is going to be fun today. All right. So today, as you all know, we're talking about the challenges of the green-cheeked conure, and they are many, I'm afraid. But first, let's look at some interesting statistics and facts. I think it's important when we have a parrot to know what area of the world they come from, what the scientific name is. So the scientific name for green-cheeked conures is Parrot molinae. They originate from South America, 4 different countries within South America specifically. They inhabit a wide range of woodland habitats, and the trees in that woodland all tend to be deciduous. So it's very different than areas where many other parrots live. And they also live in mixed species flocks. They've been seen along with yellow-collared macaws, scaly-headed parrots, and mitered parakeets. And one thing about them that is interesting is that they are most often observed in groups of 6. Now, I have highlighted that because this is something that is very special and unique about the species, and I believe it has implications for how we should keep them. Regarding the wild diet, again, they feed on deciduous shrubs and trees, between 16 and 18 plant species, depending upon where in South America they originate. They eat fruit 66% of the time, and interestingly enough, figs comprised 60% of the diet at certain times of the year. Seeds were 16%. Although I want to make sure to remind you that these are not the seeds that we find in our seed mixes. They also eat flowers, leaves, and even nectar. And something that's unique about them is that they are very flexible when it comes to changing their diet because their habitat has both wet and dry seasons. So the plants that are fruiting, the plants they're feeding on are very different from dry to wet seasons. So what does this mean about the species? It means they are pretty tough and pretty flexible. And one of the things I read about them when I was researching is that they're often the smallest parrot within those mixed species flocks. So these are real little, tough little birds. They're going to eat whatever's out there, at least in the wild. And they're going to be able to survive quite well, even in an area with much larger birds. Now, I thought this was interesting. One of the plants that they eat is called Celtis iguanae. It's known as the iguana hackberry, and it actually makes up 31% of their diet in the wild. That's why I mentioned this. That's a big percentage to me. And I think it's also interesting because this plant is found in Florida. So for any of you Floridians out there, I would not recommend that you look at this picture and then go identify the plant, because you should be more careful than that. If you really want to go out and search for this plant, you should download the app called Picture This. It is the best photo ID app for plants out there. Something else that's interesting is that this plant belongs to the same family as cannabis, Cannabaceae, and it contains medicinal compounds and it's very aromatic. I've highlighted that because parrots do have a very good olfactory sense, and green-cheeked conures very much appreciate aromatic mixes in captivity. I'll say more about those here in a bit. A second plant that they feed on widely is Trima micranthum. It's known as the Jamaican nettle tree, and it makes up 22% of the diet in the wild. And it too is found in southern Florida. It too belongs to the same plant family as cannabis. It too contains medicinal compounds that are aromatic. Isn't that amazing? I couldn't believe it when I found this.
Oh.
There are other trees that they also feed on that are aromatic. I just didn't include them for the purposes of time. This species is also unique in terms of their preferences for proximity. I want to mention again the blog post that I published just recently. I have spent years researching proximity in people and comparing that to proximity in parrots. And for the majority of parrot species, they do not enjoy close physical contact amongst just friends. But look at this. This is the way that green-cheeked conures sleep if they are allowed to sleep naturally. It's in a dog pile. Can you see this? One conure, two conures, three conures, and so this is very common with them. If you keep these photographs, I've given her credit at the end, come from a mentee of mine, Ray Rosenquist, and she has parent-raised green-cheeked conures in her flock. She's rapidly becoming a bit of an authority about them, and her birds have a great deal of freedom. They all live in her living space, and so a good many of these photographs came from her, and this is one of them. This is something that she has observed. So this is amazing. I've never seen another parrot species sleep like this. So what's happening is that a zone that is typically used for intimate interactions is instead used for social reasons, just with friends. So conspecifics prefer to be in closer proximity and in larger numbers than most other species. The first successful breeding of green cheeks was accomplished by George Smith in 1979, and I found this fascinating. He kept 4 adults together. Now that is crazy. You can't do that with most other parrot species. They will fight with each other. But he kept 4 adults together, and the 2 females even laid eggs in the same box. All of this information is telling us that proximity to conspecifics for green cheek parrots is very, very important. I hope that you will all go and read my blog post about proximity if you have not. So this also, I think, points the way for better breeding practices. If we are going to continue to breed parrots in captivity, we must do a more ethical job of it. And if we just focus on green cheeks, that would mean allowing them a more natural way of living communally and breeding communally, as they obviously are wont to do. As we all know, they're very popular. Thank you, Petco. In Oregon, every time I went into a Petco there, which I tried not to do because they sell birds, I would see a green cheek conure with the wings clipped down to nothing on some employee's shoulder. Now that's an advertising gambit. They sell a lot of green cheek conures because everybody thinks I want one of those on my shoulder because that's the most adorable thing I've ever seen. And they're also popular because they offer a large parrot personality in a small package. Also, people get really into the exclusive experience of having different color mutations. And I know this because on my questionnaire, my behavior questionnaire, people make a big deal out of this. I have a yellow-sided da-da-da, or I have a blah, blah, blah. You know, to me, they're all just green cheek conures. I could care less. But the fact that people speak about them this way allows me to understand that it's a big deal to the people who own them if they get one of these slightly more exotic color mutations. And they're just stinkingly adorable. So how can you resist them? But from my perspective, they are not an easy parrot to keep at all without problems. Small does not mean easy. Green cheeks have a very intense personality. They are exquisitely sensitive to environmental stimuli, very reactive, very fast, and with a tendency towards nippiness. Now, I always hesitate to label a species as nippy or this or that, because that's just a label. And in truth, behavior is a study of one. You know, double yellow-headed Amazons, they're supposed to be nippy also. I lived with one for 28 years and never got bitten. So I want to hasten to say that just because a species may have a tendency towards nippiness, that does not mean that nippiness is acceptable or that you should, you know, live with it, or that it's normal. It's not. So here's some data that I collected from the last 2 years. In 2022, I did a total of 8 consultations for green cheeks. 3 of them were for feather damaging behavior, 3 for aggression, 1 for fear, and 1 for self-mutilation. Now, fear and aggression are really 2 sides of the same coin. They could be considered to be the same behavior because they are both distancing behaviors. So the 3 aggression cases, they also had some fear mixed in, but the one that I called out as separate, that bird was not aggressive. He was just extremely fearful. In 2023, I did 10 consultations, and honestly, I would swear to you, I think I missed some, because it seems to me that I'm consulting about a green cheek every time I turn around. I did a brand new consultation this morning at 9 a.m. on a green cheek, and then at 1, I talked about another one. They comprise probably at least 50% of my caseload. So in this case, feather damaging behavior number 2, aggression 6, aggression with reproductive behaviors 1, and screaming 1. So I think this pretty accurately represents the challenges that we experience with green cheek conures. The feather damage, well, I'm going to get to this in a minute. I think I called that out. Yes. So as a summary, 10 cases were about aggression, 5 were feather damaging behavior, 1 strictly fear, 1 self-mutilation, and 1 screaming. But I want to make the point that every single one of those cases, except the one for fear, were related to increased hormone production. That is the primary problem that this species has in captivity because of the way that we insist on interacting with them. So regarding the aggression that people experience, it's very common for these birds to be kept fully flighted, as they should be, of course. But then if they become hormonal and aggressive, flighted attacks become really common. And remember back to when I described them as very fast, they're scary. They are swift, they are sudden, and they are savage. One of my clients had a nickname for her green cheek. It was called the Joker Hurricane. That's how they referred to him. Another client, I'll never forget this moment, because she looked me in the eye on Zoom and she was telling me how she felt about her green cheek. And she said to me, "I am terrified of him." And she wasn't kidding. She was literally terrified of this little tiny bird. It's also common for them to be aggressive towards objects that you might pick up or hold. This must be taken very seriously. It is not cute behavior, and it can be solved, of course, but really prevention is the key. So regarding increased hormone production and green cheek conures, I want to tell you about one case I had, a little bird named Apple. The client came to me because Apple was mutilating his feet at night. They had been to the veterinarian and had a full workup done. Radiographs had revealed that the bird had very enlarged testes that were pressing on a nerve. This was the hypothesis, anyway, that the vets came up with. The testes were pressing on a nerve that was going down into the feet. It was causing nightly self-mutilation. These folks had a camera set up. They were not sleeping through the night. They were sleeping in shifts, 1 hour on, 1 hour off, to keep an eye on this bird so he didn't kill himself during the night. They were exhausted. And so we reversed the triggers for the problem. And it was interesting, the things that really were most effective. I asked the client, because we got the problem under control. They didn't have to have the camera anymore. He was not mutilating his feet anymore after we implemented the changes that brought down hormone production. So when I asked them what they thought was most effective in resolving the problem, they said diet, because we brought the energy level of the diet down very low. We implemented CHOP so that we kind of diluted the nutrition that the pellets and other foods offered. I think we also changed the pellet brand. And then we also stopped allowing Apple to go to work with her parents. They worked at home in an upstairs office, and that room tended to be very warm. And one of the things I'm learning about green cheeks is that they are very sensitive to environmental warmth. And so this little bird would go with them every day into their office, sit there while they worked. Then, so he was with them constantly. That was a bit of the problem. But the warmth in the room was also a problem. So I asked them to just start acting as if they were going to work outside of the house. I know this seems weird and punitive perhaps, but I asked them to have their morning social time with him out of the cage for an hour, and then put him in the cage downstairs where it was cooler for the day while they worked. And then they had, their social time with him in the evening. They actually thought that was one of the most effective things that we did. And so in fairness, I must report that this bird did. I heard the consultation ended. It was a success. I heard from them much later after the fact. Apple had had a recurrence of chewing on his feet. This time it was not due to increased hormone production. They thought it was due to avian ganglioneuritis. At any rate, they elected to do a CT scan, and Apple died under anesthetic. So the typical green cheek conure experience is that they're purchased as a baby from Petco, PetSmart, or a breeder. They're allowed to cuddle and be on shoulders without any limitation. Who's in the background of this photo? Somebody lying down, right? Lying down, chilling out with a green cheek conure on their chest. And that is a wonderful experience for us. It makes us feel loved and warm and cozy and cared for, but it's very bad for the birds. Because what happens is babyhood gives way to sexual maturity. And then that bird believes he has a pair bond with you because of all that physical closeness that you've enjoyed. And so then resource guarding begins, because now he thinks you belong to him. That's the way it works out there in the wild. And so he's going to start attacking. This is where the flighted attacks come in, to anybody that the bird perceives as a rival, perhaps, for your affections. And then cavity seeking begins, and then you really start to get some serious problems after that. Oh my gosh, it's just like the typical cockatoo experience, isn't it? I have a blog post called The Inconvenient Truth About Cockatoos, and it explains how cockatoos naturally seek closeness, and so they get cuddled a lot too. I mean, all over the internet, doesn't it say cockatoos are cuddly? I got to tell you, cockatoos are not cuddly. People are cuddly. We create this situation. We create this situation because of our own emotional needs and the fact that we can't seem to get those met by people. So we choose our parrots. And so I think that these two scenarios are very parallel. I do, cockatoos and green cheek conures, because both species have a bit of an odd or different relationship to proximity. Green cheeks like to be real close to each other, and so do cockatoos. They're another species that really like a lot of physical closeness with others of their species. But that doesn't mean that it's appropriate to give them that experience with us. So just to review, triggers for increased hormone production are the presence of a pair bond, intimate or time spent in the intimate zone. So that's going to be 0 to 24 inches. So keeping your bird on your shoulder, your lap, your chest. Oh, green cheeks, don't they just love to come and, sleep under your hand, or be, just rest in a cupped hand. Cavity seeking, crawling down shirt fronts, seeking out dark places, a high energy diet, mainly fats and carbohydrates, and environmental warmth for green cheeks. For others, it can be a trigger as well. So success for green cheeks it rests solely in problem prevention. We want to choose a diet that is low in metabolizable energy. We want to encourage independence. These are naturally busy birds. That's what we want them doing. We want to practice inclusive living with at least one other conspecific. I do not believe we should keep green-cheeked conures as single birds. We want to provide a stimulating environment with many choices. We want to allow flight and focus on training and guidance rather than touch. So regarding diet, I've been with one of my mentees, Dr. Amy Zhao. She and I have been accumulating the metabolizable energy figures for different foods on the market. So I've got to apologize to Lafeber, because Lafeber should be in here also in terms of the amount of metabolizable energy. So Rowdy Bush is 2,700 kilocalories per kilogram. Harrison's adult lifetime is 3,300 kilocalories per kilogram. I tend just not to have the Lafeber on my radar because I just don't have clients come to me who are feeding it typically. But it would be a recommended pellet for green cheeks because it is right there in that same range of metabolizable energy. I have many clients who've come to me and they have hopped on the bandwagon and been purchasing Tops pellets or Bird Tricks or Jason Crean's pellets. Bird Tricks and Jason Crean's pellets are just repackaged Tops. Tops, unfortunately, the metabolizable energy is, I believe, 3,900 kilocalories per kilogram. So if you want your bird to lay eggs, feed Tops. Same thing with Kitech Oven Fresh Bites or whatever the name is. Those are very high also. So you want to feed a pellet that's somewhere between 2,700 and 3,300 kilocalories per kilogram, but no higher. And then you want to also implement a good chop mix in the morning. If you don't know how to make a good, easy chop mix, call me up. Lafeber Nutriberries, they are 3,214 kilocalories per kilogram, and the Ava Cakes 2,687. So this is the diet I recommend for green cheeks. Pellets available all the time, chop mix in the morning for foraging for several hours, and then the Nutriberries and Ava Cakes for foraging at the end of the day. And then reserve all nuts and seeds for training and foraging. No treats for no reason. I think that we often lose sight of the relative size of the birds that we're feeding. And one of the things that I'm fond of doing with somebody who has a parrot that weighs close to a pound, like an African gray, it's a very common occurrence that I might be talking to somebody, an owner of a bird like that, and they give 3 almonds a day. So in order to get my point across, I will say that a 1-pound parrot, roughly equivalent to 500 grams, eating 3 almonds a day, is like a 100-pound person eating 300 almonds a day. That's what I mean. We tend to lose sight of the relative size of the parrot in front of us. And these birds will gobble down sugar cookies like there's no tomorrow. So we've got to be very judicious in terms of what we do give them. We also want to encourage independence. I know I showed this photo in the last presentation, but I'm just so fond of it. And it's just such a perfect example of a great green-cheeked conure habitat. A client, a wonderful client of mine, Kara, she came to me, she's got 2 green cheeks and 3 budgies. And one of the green cheeks was launching flighted attacks. The other's a bit of a screamer, and the green cheeks and budgies weren't getting along quite so well. So we expanded her habitat. And so this is a picture that, whoops, that she sent me. I was going to try and make it bigger. Yeah, there. So you can see we've got a scarf hanger right here hanging from the ceiling. This is part of an old bird cage that was attached to the wall with command hooks. That enabled her to add several other perches. You can see her little green cheeks there enjoying each other, along with the budgies also nearby. Budgies and green cheeks, they get along pretty well because they're both kind of scrappy birds. Green cheeks and cockatiels, not so much. Green cheeks and other conures, good. So at any rate, look how many choices these birds have. And she told me it was very easy to accomplish with command hooks. Even all the toys are hung from the ceiling with command hooks. So you can really create a very interesting dynamic environment without going to a lot of expense. So you want to set up, I said a reasonable habitat. I couldn't think of a better word. What I mean is, if your bird is clipped, well, then yeah, maybe you don't need to create Disneyland, but you do need to have at least 3 perches for the bird to use, because the successful strategy is that you create a habitat and then you practice stationing with your birds. And what that means, I think a lot of people misunderstand stationing because they think it means we're asking the bird to stay in one place for a period of time. That is not what stationing is about with parrots. Instead, you set up a habitat, a variety of perches. And if that bird is on any of his perches, he gets rewarded. It's just when he flies to our stuff that he's not going to get rewarded. Oops, what happened? My goodness. Well, I'm having a bit of a problem. Okay, can I move it this way? No. There, okay.
That's good.
So you also want to practice inclusive living. That means you have your parrots in your living area, not off in a separate room. If you want disaster, put a couple of green cheek conures in a separate room. You'll be calling me in about 1.5 years. So put the cage in the living area, and I do recommend that you have at least 1 other green cheek conure, but they need to be caged separately. That was part of the problem when Kara came to me. Her green cheeks were living in the same cage. That's way too much proximity all of the time. You need to make sure birds have some space. And then when they're out of the cage, they can be together all that you want to. So before she just had this set up, she just had this set up right here where she had the green cheeks in one cage and the budgies in another. So again, too much pressure, too many birds in too small a space. So we moved the budgies over here to this cage. We also, you can see, mounted the cages on the wall, which made everything much cleaner and easier to vacuum up under the cages. And then the 2 green cheeks had their own separate cages over here. Then we also want to encourage even bonds with all family members and focus on parallel activities rather than touch and these close, one-on-one interactions. We want to provide a stimulating environment with lots of choices. Foraging trays are a fantastic choice for green cheeks. They love bathing opportunities. You could put a fountain in the room, different dishes around, wet leaves. They love leaf bathing. So you can provide bathing in a variety of different ways. Many clients who come to me, their green cheeks don't really chew, and that's just because they haven't known how to find things that green cheeks like to chew on, basically. So the agave pods, like they have in the bird kebabs, if the birds don't chew on them, as a string of kebabs, cut that twine apart and zip tie the little individual discs in different places to encourage them to chew on them. Green cheeks love mahogany pods, so include those in your toys. And then balsa wood. There are some pretty good vendors for balsa wood these days. They also enjoy aromatic flower blends. What a surprise, right? Marley and Mia is a website that is a good choice for those, as well as the San Francisco Herb Company. Oh gosh, I was going to make some notes about. So the things that were included in the Marley and Mia blends that I looked at were like dried roses, calendula, rosemary, things that have an aroma. One word of caution, do not include elderberry in anything that you give to parrots. It does increase hormone production. We know that anecdotally, and many flower blends do have elderberry, so read the ingredients carefully. But I've talked to Ray about this a lot, and her birds love these aromatic flower blends that she chose. I think I was in Walmart actually, and I was looking at their small mammal section, and I found something that was very similar. It was inexpensive, $5, and it was a bag of just this, grasses and grass heads and dried flowers. It was very clean. And so just for grins, I brought it home and I created a foraging tray for my African grays with that. They loved it. They jumped right into it. All of it is edible. I couldn't see any problem with it. You should never, of course, let a blend like this get wet because it would grow aspergillus spores, but just put it in a dry place and play around with something like that because it's really fun. Flight is a birthright. Just recently, I talked to a client whose vet recommended wing trimming her aggressive cockatoo that doesn't fly because it's going to take him down a peg. Well, no, I'm sorry. That's just kind of old information. Wing trimming doesn't do anything to curb aggression, so it's not a solution for you. Instead, allow flight, encourage it, and train for compliance. What does that mean? You reward desirable behavior. Reward your bird when he steps up. Teach him to fly to you. And then you can use A to Bs to exercise the little darlings. That's how you take some of the stuffing out of them. Regarding other environmental recommendations, please disregard the wisdom of social media that tells you that your parrots need a sleep cage. They need 10 to 12 hours of uninterrupted sleep every night. None of that is true. It was never true. You want to keep your house temperature low. I had an interesting conversation with Dr. Amy Zhao about warmth. We were just exploring the issues around day length and parrots when it occurred to us as we were talking that something else actually happens when spring and fall come around. It gets warmer, doesn't it? It's not just all about day length. In the spring, temperatures get warmer, and in the fall, we turn on our heaters. So after that conversation, I've been asking clients how warm they keep their homes, and I have never been more surprised in my life. We have an entire population of folks that are keeping parrots at 72, 75, 78, and 80 degrees because they think that parrots need to be kept at warmer temperatures. This is not true. Parrots will acclimate to whatever temperature at which you keep them. I have kept birds outdoors in Oregon. So does Chris Schenk. Her birds, her aviaries will be covered with snow and her birds will be out there flying in them. They also have the ability to thermoregulate, which means that if the temperature dips, They will trap air in their feathers to keep themselves warmer. They also will pull one leg up to keep, they minimize surface area on the body so that temperature is not lost. So you want to keep your house temperature low, 68, 70 degrees. No sleep cages, no sleep tents, and do not provide 12 hours of darkness. A very, very well-intentioned friend of mine did just what social media recommended. She put her 2 green-cheeked conures to bed in this nice sleeping cage with a dark cover, and she kept them in there for 15 hours to reduce hormone production, and she kept the temperature at 80 degrees. And I got to tell you, she's got 2 very, very hormonal green chicks, but we're in the process of changing that. So in summary, these birds are very complicated. They are fascinating, rewarding companions, but they should not be considered starter birds or just like cockatiels, but a little better. These are tricky birds, and they take a knowledgeable owner if you're going to keep them successfully. And you should not purchase them as cuddle buddies. You should think about green-cheeked conures as if they are maybe a scarlet macaw. That would be a good comparison. When you look at your green cheek, just picture a scarlet macaw and then treat them that way. I do not believe that green cheeks should be kept singly. I've talked with Ray about this, and we've agreed the best numbers would be 2 green cheeks, 4 green cheeks, or 6 green cheeks. Triggers for hormone production must be kept as low as possible. They need a stimulating environment that encourages activity and exploration, and we must reward all cued behaviors in order to achieve compliance. This isn't a very good picture of my beloved mentee, Ray Rosenquist, who provided most of the beautiful photos, but she is very much a champion of the species. She free flies them, which I wouldn't recommend, but she does it successfully. She's also parent raised 6 babies, which is remarkable that 2 of her birds went to nest and produced babies that are now becoming incorporated in her family flock. So if you're interested in green cheeks, I recommend following her. Her blog is oneparrotaway.wordpress.com. On Instagram and TikTok, she is known as the Feathered Protectorate. As always, thank you so much for coming. Every time I give one of these webinars, I feel grateful that you all are here and supporting me in this way. Thanks very much. We actually have time for some questions, I think.
Yes, we do. Okay, that was mind-blowing, by the way. I learned a lot of things that I unlearned a lot of things that I learned before. So that was really, really good. Just can I ask you a quick question before we do have some great questions ahead of us. I've always heard the thing that from my first foray into when I was at Bird Talk that there was the Parrot conures and the Aratinga. I'm probably but like the noise levels was like if you want a noisier, if you want the Aratingas are always louder than the Parrots, so the green cheeks are going to be less loud than sun conures. What's your honest take on that?
I think that is generally true. However, there are plenty of people who are bothered by green cheeks screaming. And, when it comes to screaming, that is a behavior that is maintained by reinforcement. So even a sun conure can be a reasonable bird in terms of noise if you just don't reward it and if you don't provide triggers for the noise, because conures are very reactive. And so, if you put a perch on a window where you've got a bird feeder outside, you're going to get a lot of screaming. But if you minimize opportunities for reactivity and you reinforce desirable vocalizations, then even an aratinga can be a reasonably quiet bird. A green cheek, if you do all the wrong things and reward screaming, that bird can be just as horrible as an aratinga. But generally speaking, what you said is true.
Okay. Let's see. We have a question from Kate about a 12-year-old green cheek conure that was very tame, just occasional bites, until about 4 years ago when their son, his favorite human, moved out. So now this green cheek has become increasingly vicious and recently went under their glasses to go for their eye to give him a bad bite on the eyelid. So they had just done some training and were putting him back in the cage when I guess this happened. He tries to bite to hurt all the time and they don't know what to do. So they don't want to give up hard to give up on him. So, and the son is now afraid of him as well. So any advice where to start?
Yes. Contact me for a consultation. That's my advice. But beyond that, to try and give you some help, a bird who behaves this way is either intensely fearful or intensely hormonal. I can't tell from what you've said. I would need way more information. But you can tell from the way the bird behaves. If you walk up to the cage and he retreats to the back, then he's fearful. If you walk up to the cage and he comes forward to attack, then it's less likely to be fear. But a situation like this really needs guidance from a professional, because what you have to do first is to resolve the aggression. And in order to do that, you're going to need to use the constructional approach. Okay, I see, a message, he's hormonal, not fearful at all. Well, if you, Laura, are the one who asked the question, then what you should do is start to implement reducing those triggers. Now, on my blog that you can find at blog.PamelaClarkOnline.com, I have 3 blog posts. One is called Avoid the Pair Bond, Social Relationships with Parrots. A second one is called Cavity Seeking. And a third one is called Reproductive Behaviors in Companion Parrots. So that might be a place to start. You could read those if you don't want to do a consultation, and start to reduce the triggers for hormone production. That is not going to solve your problem. However, you will first need to use the constructional approach, and you cannot use that without help from a professional who knows how to use that approach. And then after that, you would begin to target the bird to create some trust. And then after that, we would structure very carefully a handling relationship. But that essentially is the bare bones of your solution.
Okay. And then Anita says that since they are more intimate with other bird friends than other parrots, does that impact the way we should be touching them if we don't want to trigger hormones?
Yes. This is true for our relationships with all parrots. They are, to a one, tremendously triggered by being on our bodies. So the best way to keep parrots is to have them around you, in your vicinity, but perching on their furniture. And then we interact with them by moving them around. If they fly, they follow us. They enjoy parallel activities, but we are not having them on our shoulder. If a bird is close enough, like the first solution for aggression is to stop all the bites. Don't put a bird on your shoulder if he's aggressive. Don't let him near your face if he's aggressive. He shouldn't, right? You know, handling should occur under very specific conditions. So yeah, you really do need to stop all the intimate stuff. I had, let me share this. It was fascinating to me. So I've struggled for years to explain to people what to do and what not to do. So I've said things like, stop the lovey-dovey interactions. You know, don't pet the bird down the back. Don't touch him except on the head. We've all heard that a million times, and I've said it a million times. But then after researching proximity in people and proximity in parrots and writing those blog posts, I've had a couple of epiphanies. And one client, for instance, we've had a very hard time resolving the aggression in her blue-fronted Amazon towards her partner. Same story, the bird has a pair bond with you and launches flighted attacks against her partner. And I've been frankly frustrated. I've recommended everything I can think of, and the aggression continues. But after she read my blog post, she said, you know, Pam, I've been following all the rules. I never cuddle him. He's never on my shoulder. He's never on my lap or on my chair or my, you know, the couch where I'm sitting. But I realized that all of the interactions that I have with him are in that intimate zone. So what she does when she interacts with him is she leans in, gets real close, and talks in a really soft, sweet voice. That communicates certain things to him. When she stopped doing that, the problem improved. It's not resolved, but it improved. So that tells you something. And another client who has a feather-picking green-winged macaw, she said to me, you know, Pam, after reading your blog post, I realized that when I heard I can only pet her on her head, in my mind, it converted to, I can pet her head as much as I want. You're muted, Laura. You're muted.
Got it. Sorry. Thank you. I was trying to, okay. Yeah. Sleeping questions for you. So if
Yes.
sleep cages are discouraged, what do
Yes.
you do if their main cage is in the living space and, like, let's say you're a night owl? Can you
Yes.
say more about the guideline for no sleep cage? Is it
Yeah.
more about covering, or is it a separate space? And why do you
No,
discourage the use of sleep cage?
the reason I discourage the use of sleep cages is, one, they're unnecessary, and two, a lot of parrots regard them as nest cavities. And that's what those two birds, that was a nest cavity. It was perfect for them. 15 hours of darkness, they could sit right next to each other. It was nice and warm. There is nothing that will encourage reproductive behaviors more than conditions like that. Let's just address quickly, if we can, this whole issue of 12 hours of darkness and sleep and all of that, because I know how all of this came about. So here's what happened. About 28 years ago, there was a woman named Liz Wilson, and she was writing articles for the Pet Bird Report, as was I. This was a very new magazine. I don't know which came first. Was it the Pet Bird Report or Bird Talk?
Oh gosh.
I think it was Pet Bird Report. And then
Let-
I think Bird Talk came along soon after.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to check that.
Yeah. But at any rate, the Pet Bird Report became wildly popular very quickly because Sally was wickedly funny. I miss that woman's sense of humor. Nobody has made me laugh that way since her. And she was also an incredible artist. But the problem lay in the fact that she didn't know anything about bird behavior, but she was publishing articles about bird behavior. Her background was as an elementary school art teacher. And so we were busy publishing a lot of stuff back then that wasn't true. And Liz Wilson had only lived with one bird her entire life. It was a blue and gold macaw. And she rapidly caught on to the fact that he wanted to go to bed at 7 o'clock at night. That's pretty typical for a blue and gold macaw. All parrots are not the same, though. But anyway, then she got him up at 7 in the morning, and she was hunting around for topics to write about. So she wrote, all parrots need 10 to 12 hours of uninterrupted sleep a night. Those were her words. That was the sentence. And that started being repeated on social media. It wasn't true. I mean, there's one species of conure that doesn't even go to roost until midnight. Whenever you hear any sentence that starts with all parrots, you know it's wrong. There are 400 different species with different cultures and different practices. So then what happened a few years later was the veterinary community started talking amongst themselves because they were observing a phenomenon. Back then, we had more New World parrots in our population. Now it's a little more evenly dispersed between New World and Old World parrots. But there was a land route, so we had more Amazons, macaws, pioneers, etc. in our population. Those birds do have a tendency to be, or they did back then anyway. Global warming has changed things, but they had a tendency to become hormonal as the day length increased. So what did the veterinarians, what was their message then? All parrots must have 12 to 14 hours of darkness every night. So they're recommending darkness. It wasn't about sleep. So the first message, Liz's message, was about sleep. The veterinary message was about darkness, okay? Then social media got a hold of those two messages. And now we have the current mess of messaging out there that, so some people think that sleep impacts hormones. Sorry, it does not. It's about the darkness, okay? And so the reality is parrots do not need a certain number of hours of darkness. There's a moon outside. You should always have a nightlight in your house. Please do not provide a certain number of hours of darkness for your bird. Birds should be able to choose their own bedtimes and then get up as early as possible in the morning. That's the most functional way to keep parrots. And so one reality is that birds are wired differently than mammals are. One hemisphere of the brain is connected to the opposite eye. So the left hemisphere is connected to the right eye. The right hemisphere of the brain is connected to the left eye. Birds only sleep with one hemisphere of the brain at a time. You can research this. This is how birds can fly for thousands of miles without stopping. They actually fly while they're sleeping. Okay, so there's a moon outside. It's not quiet outside. There are nocturnal predators. There are nocturnal animals moving around. Flock members do not sleep through the night. Parrots do not sleep through the night. So this whole idea of sleep cages came about because of this false belief that parrots need a certain number of hours of sleep or darkness or whatever nonsense you've heard that you believe in. It is all simply wrong. And the reason that people believe it is because of something called the illusory truth effect. If you research that, you will find it is described as a glitch in the human consciousness that allows us to believe that something is true simply because we hear it over and over and over again. There are research studies on this topic that I have read. So it's just simply nonsense. And if you are night owls, well, I don't know what that means, but if you're up till midnight, that's fine. Your bird will just nap during the day. If you're up past midnight, then put some listen on headphones or something. You can still be out there, watch TV, do whatever you want, but it's no big deal. Get over it, okay?
All right. That is fascinating. Okay. All right. There you go. I think that I'm glad that was a really fascinating look on something that we've heard so much about. So, all right. On that, I have to get on to our next. We flew through that hour. This is such a fascinating presentation. I totally appreciate walking us through all that information. And in the end, that just kind of like, now I'm all, I'm gonna. What was that process you just mentioned? What's it called? About you.
The illusory truth effect.
Yes. Okay. I gotta look that up. That sounds. I'm sure.
It's
Yeah.
ILLUSORY, truth effect.
I've heard that, but I didn't know what the name of it was. So now I know. So I appreciate that too. Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I've heard of it. Okay. So next Friday, we're going to be on with Dr. Tolley for another episode of Ask the Vet. And everyone is like, thank you. This is such a fascinating presentation. So for sure, like our chat's blowing up with all these thank yous.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I hope we can find another species to focus on maybe in the future for heading into 2024. So
I'd love to do that. Let me do a presentation on African grays, okay?
All right.
Although I see one of my mentees, McKenna, okay, I'll do one on macaws for you.
There's so many that we could, so many possibilities for that, right? Species profile. I like doing the deep dives here on a specific bird.
Hi, Lynn.
All right. While we go through we go through our credits here, I'm going to share our giveaway for today. That we have a video for that, so I'm going to share that, and I'm going to announce the winner. Who gets it? We have a giveaway. Let's see. I think it got lost in all of the. Oh gosh. Okay. Where's our Brenda? Who's our winner today? Okay. Okay. So today's winner of our product giveaway is Jamie. Galia. This is I'm going to show you a video of our Lafeber has a special by the way, we have a special holiday bundle, and so you're going to get that. It's if you go on the website, I think it's only available till December 15th. So we're going to send that out to Jamie's way, but the special holiday bundle is available on Lafeber.com till December 15th. And Lafeber is also offering gift cards. So you can actually send a Lafeber gift card to your bird loving friends. So go on Lafeber.com and check out those specials for the month of December. I'm going to pray. So then the big announcement before we go is December 20th. That is when we do our holiday giveaway with Lisa Bono is going to be on with us. We have like $3,000 worth of products that we're giving away. So don't miss that. You're going to join us again. It's our third annual. We're building momentum each year, I think, with this, and we're giving away. I got a Lafeber backpack with a tumbler cup. We got so much to give away. You got to join us. You got to be there to win it. So here we go. I'm going to play. Hopefully, let me cross my fingers here that this plays proper. Okay. Here's a little prelude to what we were doing on December 20th. Okay, here we go. I don't know if the music. Can you hear the music?
Wow.
So some of the sponsors are giving us stuff to give away. All right. There we go. Oh, it's still playing. Sorry. Okay, sorry. I don't think, could you hear the music? Because has some fabulous Christmas music going on there. Oh, Brenda's saying just sing Jingle Bells. You do not want to hear me sing. I did that during the birthday celebration. That was a horrible idea. So I will not sing again on screen here. All right, guys. That is what is happening on December 20th. So that is like really coming up fast. That's a Wednesday, not a Friday of our typical webinars, but a Wednesday, and it's going to be an hour earlier. So for my time, for example, it'll be 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So whatever time zone you're in, join us an hour earlier than typical, and on a Wednesday and not a Friday. Okay, that's it. I gotta take us out here. Thanks again, Pamela. Your just very enlightening. I love how you touched upon things that people might not realize, or I don't know. You just have a way of enlightening us that that no one else does. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Thank
All
you.
right, guys. On that note, hope to see you this Friday for Ask the Vet, and then Wednesday for our holiday giveaway. Okay. Everyone have a
Right.
great weekend. All the best to you and your birds, and stay safe. Till next time. Bye.
Be kind.
There you go.